I would like to know what each candidate feels about the issue we faced with Dr. John's. And this is the lingerie shop. There was zoning issues, and just to fill in the background. What could or should have been done differently? We begin with Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you. Frankly, I felt the Dr. John's lawsuit was perhaps ill-advised from the start. Now, I say that. I do think any city council, a person to criticize the council, has to be very cautious in saying that hindsight is 20/20 and I would have done this or that. But looking at that from the start, I think we have to be very cautious in treading down an issue which ultimately, and in essence, is a constitutional one, which I feel the city was in essence destined to lose. That was a very tough vote for me personally this past spring when we voted to end that case. But my personal opinion was that we would spend more time and effort than we ever should have in that case, regardless of how I or citizens feel about Dr. Johns personally, and we'd be well advised to stay away from such issues. We have to continually be on guard to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I was less than pleased to have inherited that on the city council and felt that having spent $560,000 in continuing court costs was more than enough, and felt it appropriate and honorable just to end it.
When I first came on council, the Dr. John's issue was first heating up. In fact, the battle had already, the preliminary shots had already been fired across the bows between Dr. John's and the city. And so I came on to a situation that was in front of us. This is one of the toughest issues that I faced on city council when you're looking at trying to govern and govern that effectively. I think one of the things that I were to do if I were to flash back 4 years ago is that, first of all, I think we did not have the expertise in our legal department that we needed to tackle this issue. I think if we were to go back and look at the issue altogether, it was clear that some of our ordinances were decades old, and we needed greater expertise on the front end rather than than not having expertise to really make this issue a situation that wouldn't have been so long and protracted. It was a mistake, but in hindsight 2020, that's what I'd look at as it relates to the issue. As it relates to the issue of governance over the fact that there are adult entertainment businesses that locate in the city. Most cities, and in fact the Supreme Court itself, I've studied this myself and I've also talked to experts about it, there is a constitutional law that does allow communities to govern some of the secondary, really when it comes down to adult entertainment business, you're talking about negative effects as a result of that business, lowering property taxes, higher crime rates around those places. And so we do have an issue where we need to govern appropriately. And looking back and going back to that, I would say we could have done some things differently, and that's why I think my 4-year experience counts for our future.
Thank you. Mr. Rochester.
Well, in the beginning of that, citizens had come out when they were putting the ordinance through and said there was a 110% chance of litigation in that particular case, and there was, and they had warned ahead of time that it would cost the city lots and lots of money if they went forward, and it was a losing battle, but the city moved forward. And so it was a wonderful thing when they finally voted to end it, because you hate to go into something that would be a losing battle. And Judge Bennett, his comments were that it was illegal, it was unconstitutional, it was against his First Amendment rights, and I believe his quote was, "And it's a whole lot of Sneaky's chicken." So in regards to our settlement, and you could look that up on the Journal, that was a quote. So anyway, and my opponent was the one vote that did want to continue the fight, which, talking to attorneys, if we would have went to district court and Iowa Supreme Court, it would have ultimately cost Sioux City millions of dollars. And those are just things that we can't afford to do when it just looks like a losing battle, and it's something we shouldn't move forward on. I do believe that area would be great if it was a family-friendly area and that wasn't an issue. But being that they were built, the business was built, and they were getting ready to open, it was really too late to turn the clock back. So I think it was a good decision to stop, and I wish we hadn't pursued that to begin with the circumstances the way that they were.
Thank you. Mr. Hobart?
This is a topic for which I have a little bit of experience, just because when I was in planning and zoning back in the late 90s, we were involved in the process of reformulating and rewriting the zoning ordinances for the city of Sioux City. Riley Simpson was the individual from the planning department that was actually working on it. And had we finished that process, I think the Dr. Johns could have been avoided. Unfortunately, the grant ran out, the money ran out for the rewriting of the zoning, and so the rewriting basically just came to a screeching halt and stopped. I didn't realize at the time that this wasn't being continued, and only discovered that after I had left planning and zoning, and the lawsuit or actually the zoning ordinance had been passed, and the lawsuit ultimately was filed. It's unfortunate because communities do have a right to zone those particular types of places. And I can understand the panic that the city fathers were confronted with when Dr. Johns announced that he was going to build in that particular area, because it was a new development. There were individuals concerned about whether or not it was going to be successful, and they thought, rightly or wrongly, that this was going to hurt them.
Thank you.